Every game in the Silent Hill series follows a certain pattern. There's plenty that varies game to game, but almost all of them hit a few of the same big plot points. Circumstances draw someone to enter the cursed town, or a place similar to the town. Once there, they must survive by performing certain tasks, such as fighting monsters, problem-solving, and exploring. If the character can make it through to the end of the game, they must come to terms with the truth. This may be a truth about themselves, their life, or the life of a loved one, but if they can come to terms with it and accept the truth, they will be set free and allowed to leave Silent Hill, even if the behaviors that led them there in the first place haven't changed. These various points are all indicative of the hero's journey. Hero stories, whether they be modern or ancient myth, often follow the same plot lines. They involve danger and daring, risky behavior, and often include some sort of morality tale to display the honor of the hero. There's problem solving, usually in a less obvious way than a riddle or puzzle, but sometimes it can be, such as when the hero faces a sphinx. The hero's journey is a concept that was developed by literature professor Joseph Campbell. He studied the world's mythologies and folklores, traveled far and wide, and found most cultures' myths followed the same trends and plot patterns. He wrote about it in his book, The Hero with 1,000 Faces, describing it most simply as, a hero ventures forth from the world of the common day into a region of supernatural wonder. Fabulous forces are there encountered, and a decisive victory is won. The hero comes back from this mysterious adventure with the power to bestow boons on his fellow man. It became known as the monomyth, the idea that all our myths have a common set of themes and ideas. The framework has been adapted by countless modern stories, like Star Wars, and yes, Silent Hill. The overarching narrative is the departure, initiation, and return. In the departure, the hero is called to leave the ordinary world and enter the special world. Typically, the hero is reluctant and forced to leave by circumstance. The ordinary world is their daily life, whatever is considered normal for them. The special world is the world of heroism, the battle for freedom, the magical school, or the realm of fairy. It doesn't have to be literally magical, but it is somehow special compared to the daily life the hero left behind. Luke leaves his home world and travels the stars in the Millennium Falcon. Harry Potter leaves Privet Drive and goes to Hogwarts. Percy Jackson leaves home and goes to Camp Half-Blood. The initiation stage involves the hero crossing the border into the special world, where they face tasks or trials, either alone or with helpers. Eventually they reach a crisis point where they overcome the main trial and receive some sort of reward. This is the meat of the story, where the adventure happens. The characters overcome challenges and are drawn closer together. Then the hero returns to the ordinary world, either by force or desire. The hero doesn't always want to return, but something pulls them back into the normal world. Within these 3 steps are more detailed steps which may or may not be involved. It varies story to story, but ultimately involves leaving the normal world, trial by fire in the special world, and returning with some newfound knowledge or gift. That is exactly what Silent Hill is. It's a horrific twist on the hero myth, which is part of why it works so well. It is recognizable as an ancient form of storytelling, yet entirely new in its execution, form, and function. Let's break it down game by game. First is the departure, the journey from the ordinary world to the extraordinary, and what drives the hero to make the choice to enter it. Typically, the story begins in the ordinary world in order to set up an empathetic connection with the characters, letting us see what will drive them to adventure, what they have to lose. We care more about the hero when we see why they want to journey, and why the loss of the village, or the girlfriend, or the relative matters so much. But in Silent Hill, we usually join the story right at the moment someone or something is lost. Harry has a car crash and awakens to find Cheryl gone, so he enters the town to find her. James explains in his inner monologue that his supposedly dead wife has written him a letter, he enters town hoping to find her. While she wasn't taken or lost in the traditional sense, it's the hope of recovering her that sends James into town. It follows the pattern of stories like those of Orpheus, who entered the underworld to recover his dead wife's soul. Much like Orpheus, James will fail to bring her back, in most of the endings. The hero's journey doesn't have to be the physical journey the hero makes. It can be a metaphor for the mental one, too. The way the narrative is built, Silent Hill 2's mental journey follows the hero framework, with the special world relating to James's actual memory, the knowledge of Mary's death. At times he refuses the call to remember, avoiding the truth. But by the time he's in the hospital, he accepts there's something he's forgotten and must face. That's the special world he enters. The threshold is the aftermath of Maria's death, where James leaves the hospital and for the first time makes mention of Mary's anger. The drive to enter the special world is always to solve a problem. Usually the problem is losing someone or something. The stakes have to be high to force the person to enter a dangerous unknown where they don't know the rules or how to survive. In horror stories, there's often a pattern of being called to adventure and refusing the call, such as haunted house stories, where there are often hints and signs something supernatural is happening, and the hero ignores or tries to pretend they aren't real. In Silent Hill, however, there's an escalation of the call that comes whenever the other world reappears again. In the first game, Harry comments on the transformation every time it happens. The horror of it upsets him, but nearer the end of the game, the horror begins to fade. Not because he's no longer afraid, but because he's so determined to save Cheryl. The fear that could have driven him to run away and refuse the call is gone. Another similar scenario is the scene in Silent Hill 3 where Heather approaches the open elevator. The heroes are faced with the choice of going further into the other world or running away. Another secondary call to adventure, and each time the hero reaffirms their answer, entering deeper into the darkness. Silent Hill 3 includes another feature of the journey, the mentor figure in the form of Douglas. Like most of these staples, Silent Hill is a little different in how it does it. The mentor is the reason that the tragedy of the game is happening, even if it was accidental. Where typically the mentor and the problem are not one and the same, instead the mentor is someone who has knowledge or skills needed to help the hero solve the problem. Douglas does do that. He takes Heather to Silent Hill. The drive to the town represents the crossing of the threshold, in which the hero chooses to enter the special world. Heather's journey is twofold. She must accept her past as Alessa, and she's also on a quest for vengeance for her father. The vengeance is the call that drives her to Silent Hill. In Silent Hill 4, Henry is trapped in his apartment. The threshold he crosses is quite literally the holes he uses to travel into the other world. The call is the fact that he's trapped. He has no choice but to enter the holes if he wants to escape. In Homecoming, Alex comes home and finds his brother missing. Again, this is a journey with mental and physical elements, based on Alex's repressed memories and his actual search for Joshua. And of course, in Downpour, Murphy's call to adventure is the desire not to be sent back to prison, which pushes him into the town. Once the hero has entered the special world, now comes the initiation, the second part of the story. It begins with the road of trials. The hero will be tested, meet allies and enemies, and have to overcome difficulties to achieve their goal. The tests they face usually occur in threes and help the hero grow enough to accept the outcome of the journey. Nearly every Silent Hill game has 3 main levels that force the hero to overcome trials, monsters, and puzzles to make their way forward. There are also a few different plot points that can appear in the story but don't always. For instance, there's the meeting with the goddess, which is when the hero meets a mystical figure or literal goddess who gives them knowledge or an object they need for their journey. The first Silent Hill subverts this in an interesting way. The goddess Harry meets is Dahlia, who turns out to be using him, and the item Dahlia gives him doesn't help him, it helps her. Often there's a temptation away from the true path of the story, usually with the woman playing temptress, perfectly embodied by Maria in Silent Hill 2. Once again, it's an interesting use of the concept, Since Maria literally was created for this purpose by the town, there's sometimes a moment of atonement with a figure who has great importance in the hero's life. In Silent Hill 2, James has this moment with Mary in many endings of the game. Heather has this moment with Douglas in 3 in the good ending, where she is shown letting go of her anger and accepting her origins as Cheryl. Alex is quite literally given this moment as a gameplay device, where the player is given the choice whether to forgive his father or his mother or not. Eventually, the story comes to its height, the approach to the innermost cave. This is the central location, the heart of the special world, where the final confrontation will occur and lead to the hero's success or failure. In the first game, Harry enters the amusement park to face Alessa and is transferred to Nowhere, a dark underworld comprised of pieces of memory and the past. This is where his daughter is and where he faces the final battle. James's cave is the Lakeview Hotel. Heather's is the chapel across the lake, which again leads to Nowhere. Henry's is the last apartment level where he finds Walter's body and descends into the final arena. Alex's is the cult's headquarters in Silent Hill, Murphy's is the prison, and so on. Then there's the ordeal, the trial that will make the hero face a life or death crisis. Someone close to them may die, or there may be a loss of a friendship or relationship in a less permanent way. This is the final challenge before the culmination of the story. In a video game, the ordeal almost always lines up with a boss battle. Harry's ordeal is losing Cheryl and fighting the final boss. James watches Maria die before facing Pyramid Head a final time, followed by the last fight with Maria or Mary. Heather's is an interesting twist. She watches Claudia die and is denied the revenge she so desired. Her loss is being denied her vengeance, leaving with her quest incomplete. But her real quest was coming to terms with her father's death. Henry's ordeal and the final boss happen at the same time. He loses Eileen, who reappears on the platform walking to her death. Depending on player ability, she may be killed or saved. It's fascinating how gameplay can change this ancient form of storytelling, as the outcome of the ordeal is vastly different based on player ability. The ordeal in Silent Hill usually deals with the truth the character has been denying. Murphy's is different. His story is also Anne's story, and he and Anne come to the inner cave together, the showers of the prison, where Coleridge's death is revealed. The ordeal is coming to terms with that death, and Anne and Murphy are made to fight one another after. Once again, the outcome of the ordeal in the story varies depending on player choice. After these events comes the return. The hero returns to the ordinary world by force or by choice, with new knowledge or gifts that they can use to better the world around them. For the characters of Silent Hill, this is being allowed to leave the town and return to the mundane world. Unfortunately for most of these characters, the reason they went to town in the first place often isn't solved in the manner of traditional myths. Harry doesn't save his daughter, James doesn't typically bring his wife back, and Heather doesn't get her vengeance. The characters often fail in the terms of the myth, or at least, what they come to terms with in the story isn't what they wanted in the first place. Silent Hill uses a lot of the monomyth and the hero's journey, but does it in some unique and interesting ways. Even on the surface level, the way the story is built is based on the idea of two worlds, the mundane and special worlds of Campbell's myth. We can either interpret the mundane world as the world outside the town, with the special world being Silent Hill itself, or you can go further and compare the fog world as the mundane and the other world as the special world. It's fascinating how universal these ideas are, that we see them as far back as the stories of Greek myth, and even now they're still appearing in modern video games.